This is no ordinary Air Force base. This is Edwards, where the extraordinary in aviation is witnessed. It's here that pilots test the absolute limits of flight and technology. In the early 1900s, the place was merely a watering spot for the railway. Originally named Muroc, a reversal of the name of the Coram brothers who settled the area near Fort Rogers Dry Lake in California, a small community grew out of the desolation. From these meagre beginnings, Edwards was established as an aviation testing ground, and it's been the keeper of the legend of the skill known as the right stuff. It's the stuff great pilots are made of, men flying untested machines and pushing aviation frontiers. The base has been operational for more than 50 years as the official US Air Force Flight Test Center. Pilots call it pushing the envelope, exploring the limits of every aircraft's ability. The test pilots are an elite group that are chosen from thousands of pilots for their skills. They are the best of the best. Recently, the faithful gathered to honor that history. The base was named an historic aeronautical site. Among them was a man who survived many a near miss and went on to become one of the world's most famous aviators, Chuck Yeager. His name is synonymous with the exploits of the Edwards Air Force Base. Just 5 years after America's first jet flight, Captain Chuck Yeager climbed into a test aircraft that was to achieve a significant milestone in the history of aviation. The plane was the X-1, and the milestone was supersonic flight. On October the 14th, 1947, the sound barrier was broken. Chuck Yeager exceeded Mach 1, the speed of sound, although this was just the start. Within 6 years, the speed was doubled, and in 16 years, man reached 5 times the speed of sound, and all this was performed at Edwards Air Force Base. Many pilots were killed in such exploits, and at Edwards, streets are named after them, and there are many streets on the base. Captain Glenn Edwards is an example. A display at the Edwards Museum explains how he died in a test flight in 1948, and a year later, the whole base was named in his honor. The Base Museum celebrates what makes Edwards and its pilots famous. Some pilots, like Yeager, flew experimental craft to supersonic and beyond. Others flew to the edge of space in the prelude to the space race. Yet others tested the most bizarre. Over 500 aircraft have been tested at Edwards, and always pushing the aviation theories to the limits. Too often, especially during the early days of jet testing, pilots pushed too far or machines failed them. In the early days at Edwards, the newest ideas could only be put to the test for real. There were no flight simulators, just build it and fly it. Sometimes the unexpected occurred with disastrous results, but test pilots would argue that much was learned from this exploration of the unknown. Bob Hoover is another aviation legend from Edwards. After 58 successful missions, during World War II he was shot down and taken prisoner. He spent 16 months at a German prisoner of war camp. He managed to escape and stole a German plane and flew it to the Netherlands. After the war, he was assigned to Edwards. Bob Hoover is most well known for his air show career and record attempts. His most famous air show act was his energy management routine in the Shrike Commander, seen here. In the centennial of flight edition of the Air and Space Smithsonian, he was named the 3rd greatest aviator in history. In 1992, he was inducted into the Aerospace Walk of Honor. Bob Hoover is an example of the right stuff.